Welcome back. Welcome back to yet another episode of Dogs on the Couch. Where everybody's allowed to have an opinion. It doesn't matter if you played the game. You watched it, so you're allowed to have an opinion here on Dogs on the Couch. Cleveland Browns got them a win against the Baltimore Ravens. Who would have thunk it? Who would have thought that somehow it would be possible, first of all, for the Browns to win a game, period. But they beat arguably, the best team, or at least was probably considered the best offense right now in the NFL. You know what I'm saying? So we'll start off by saying, good job, Browns. Way to get a win. Now we got to dive into the schematics of everything. Let's dig deep into it because, of course, with this win, the only thing that I keep hearing is, see, Jameis Winston. See, it was Deshaun Watson all along. You put another quarterback in there, and then look at there. You got 300 yards passing. You got a win. You scored more than 20 points. See, it was the quarterback. That's all I keep hearing. Because the way that I'm hearing it and the way that it's being put out there is that the only change, the only thing that was different in this Baltimore game is we switched quarterbacks. That's the only So we didn't switch play callers. Nobody's going to acknowledge that. Nobody's going to acknowledge that we switched play callers. Nobody going to acknowledge that. Nobody's going to put that into the equation. Your hate for one player is that great that you refuse to acknowledge the fact that we changed play callers as well. Which, again, I said this on the previous episode. I felt like that was one of the main reasons that randomly Kevin Stefanski decided to give up the play caller. And he decided to give it up when it was definitive that Jameis Winston was going to be the starter. And then, you're going to give up the play calling too. Even though Dorsey was supposed to be the play caller for Deshaun Watson, you didn't let him call the plays for Deshaun Watson, even though he was supposed to be the one designing the better schemes for Deshaun Watson. But then when you get the quarterback who's supposed to suit your stuff better, Kevin Stefanski, now you don't want to call the plays with that quarterback. You want to let Ken Dorsey do it. To create more smoke and mirrors so that you can't be pinpointed as the problem. Because if you had got Jameis Winston and you tried your offense out there and we looked exactly the same or similar, it would be 100% beyond a shadow of a doubt that Stefanski, you the problem. But to keep the smoke and mirrors going, you know what? Let me give up the play calling. That way, anything go bad, they can't blame it on me. They got to blame it on Dorsey. And they'll say that it was him. And if we win, I get the credit. Because look at me. I gave up the play calling. And look at me. See, it wasn't me. It was the quarterback this whole time. Garbage. I thought it was just like garbage. I've been hearing people say, because the guy I watch named Quincy Carrier on YouTube. He got a little podcast thing that he does or whatever, where he actually be giving some good insight sometimes. But he's a Stefanski apologist, in my opinion. Because he even goes as far as to say, well, Stefanski had his print, on the offense on this game. And, we still saw, a ton of Stefanski play calls. First of all, are you there with them when they drawing up the plays and picking them? How do you know what plays are Stefanski's and what plays aren't his plays? Oh, well, you could tell by when when the quarterback is going from under center, that's not typically Dorsey's thing. That's typically Stefanski. So when they're going under center, that's Stefanski stuff, and they did a lot of that. Well, if that was the case, then why the heck would Kevin Stefanski need to give up the play call? Make that make sense. If Dorsey ain't gonna do nothing but call the majority of Kevin Stefanski plays anyway, then what's the point in Stefanski giving up the play calling? It doesn't make sense. Like, all the excuses that's given, like outside of a combination of things. But my thing is, no matter how you dice it, the play calling needs to be included. You can't make it seem like it was just the quarterback. The play calling had absolutely nothing to do with it. Play calling has nothing to do with it. It was just the quarterback. Let me give you an example. Because all the things that I talked about with Stefanski being trash as a play caller had to do with his inability to assess football 101 situations. So, for example, 3rd and 1, you do a jet sweep with Cedric Tillman. 3rd and 4th and 1, you like to take your starting quarterback out to put the backup quarterback in just to run a QB sneak, just to later on in the season run a QB sneak with Deshaun Watson anyway. So if you ever had a time, this is my thing, find something and stick to it. That way we know what you about. The one thing I gave Dan Campbell credit for, even though it killed them in they run last year, the going for 2 thing. Because it was, if I ain't mistaken, it was the very last game. One of the games toward the latter end of the season where, they could have just kicked the extra point to tie the game, and going overtime. But Campbell was just adamant, going for two. I think they ended up taking a penalty and still went for 2. And I think they ended up losing the game because they didn't get the 2-point conversion or whatever. And so it's like, they put that on him. But the one thing I can say about that is at least he was consistent. He always did that. It wasn't, on Tuesday, it's the same scenario on both days. On Tuesday, he did one thing. On Thursday, he did something different. It's same scenario both times. With Dan Campbell, you're going to get the same thing every time. He finna give it to you. He finna bite them kneecaps every time. He's not going to bite the kneecaps one day and then bite the shins the other day. Nah, he bite kneecaps every day. He's consistent. I give him that. So I can't be mad at that. You're consistent. One of the things I was talking about with Nick Sirianni, that done quiet, the calling for his head done quieted down a little bit. Because I'm like, man, dude, was 3-2 at the time and number 2 in the division. He got a winning record and he number 2 in the division, and y'all calling for his head. Like, I don't really hear a lot of that anymore. I don't really hear too much of that anymore. None whatsoever. We need to be taking a lot of flack, the same type of flack that Deshaun Watson was getting. Aaron Rodgers need to be taking some flack. You know why? Because they did everything for that man. We didn't do that over here. Over here, we didn't be like, all right, Deshaun, you don't like Stefanski, we're going to get rid of him. We just going to make Dorsey, we're going to let Dorsey call the plays. Because he's the one that we brought here for you anyway. So we're going to get rid of this other dude or make him step aside. We're going to let this guy call the play. Oh, you want DeAndre Hopkins as your wide receiver because that was your homeboy back in the day? Guess what? DeAndre Hopkins is on his way. We about to bring him here. Which we had potential. We had a chance to do, mind you. We had a chance to do that. And Deshaun said that he would love to have a guy here. But we didn't bring him here for whatever reason. So Aaron Rodgers done got all the leeway. And he keeps thinking it up. And, we don't really hear nobody calling for his head the same way they was calling for Deshaun Watson head. We don't hear them calling for whoever the backup is over there with the Jets. Why not? We need to hear more of that. We need to hear more of Aaron Rodgers. Go sit down. You old, you slow, you can't throw, you can't read defense, you a one-read quarterback. We need to hear that stuff about Aaron Rodgers. Back to the Browns and Stefanski. Okay. Here's one of the glaring things. Football 101 moments. Do you know what I didn't see for the Quincy Carriers of the world and the other guys who defend Stefanski and his play calling and make it seem like his play calling is fine, there's nothing really wrong with it? You know what I didn't see in this past Sunday's game against the Ravens? I didn't see any trickery. I didn't see any plays where the offensive coordinator is he's trying so hard to outsmart the other team that he ends up outsmarting himself. I didn't see any freaking jet sweeps with Cedric Tillman. I didn't see any of that. On 3rd and 4th and short, I didn't see them take Winston out and bring in DTR to run a quarterback sneak, or bring him in to do a fake sneak and do a pitch play to Pierre Strong. I didn't see any of that. When it came to football 101 situations, I saw regular plays. Football 101. Oh, we 3rd and short, 4th and short. We either finna QB sneak or turn around, hand it to the running back. Let's go. Nothing special, nothing all fancy and all trickery. I didn't see any of that. I did not see a jet sweep. I don't recall seeing one jet sweep that game. If that's Stefanski calling the plays, we're going to have at least one jet sweep, my man. There's going to be at least one jet sweep. There's going to be at least one time where we take the starting quarterback out and put the backup in to do some type of package that we got with him. There's going to be a reverse with the quarterback as the lead blocker. Why we ain't run no reverse with Jameis Winston as the lead blocker? Why we do? Oh, because Stefanski wasn't calling the plays. That's why we didn't see none of that garbage. Because if we just being honest, those were a lot of the things that was helping us lose the games. Like, as bad as Deshaun Watson was playing, and one of them games we lost because Cedric Tillman, Deshaun Watson put the ball right in his breadbasket. Tillman drops it on 4th down, kills the drive, game over with. Another one, Jerry Jeudy dropped a wide open touchdown pass in the end zone. Deshaun Watson put it right on you. He drops it. That's it. Drive killed. Game over with. 2 games that could have potentially gone the other way if the receiver just catches the ball. That's it. Not to mention the missed kicks by the field goal kickers. So, in the grand scheme of things, for me, with what I saw this past weekend, it wasn't just the change at quarterback. There was a lot to go with that. The second, well, actually for me, the number one most important thing was the changing of the play caller. Then came the switching of the quarterback. Because I can't put this indictment out on Deshaun Watson because I never got to see what Watson looked like with Dorsey calling the plays. I never got a chance to see what that looked like. I don't know what it looked like. You know what I do know? I know that the Browns is 2-0. They undefeated whenever Kevin Stefanski is not the play caller. Put that in your stat book. We're undefeated when he's not calling the plays. We got the Pittsburgh game, playoff game with AVP calling the plays. And then we got this game right here against the Ravens with Ken Dorsey calling the plays. 2-0 without Stefanski calling the plays. Is that ironic? Is that just as ironic as, oh, you put Jameis Winston in and that wasn't the only thing that changed. Nick Chubb was back. You know, this is his second week back, so he got a bit more of a workload. You know, he started to, you could see some of that old Nick Chubb coming out of him, breaking off. You know, he didn't break off the super huge runs like he used to, but you could see it coming. You could see it happening. Where it was like, oh man, he was one tackle away. If that guy had missed that guy right there didn't get him down, he's going for a touchdown. Those kinds of things. That helped out. Offensive line was a bit better, not much. But instead of having 10, 11, 12, 13 penalties, I think we only had 7. Then we had the same amount. I think we had 7, and I think Baltimore had 7 penalties. So offensive line could still use a little bit of work. Still. Like you could still use, because again, like I said, that don't have nothing to do with the quarterback. No matter what quarterback you put in there, the quarterback ain't making the man jump off sides. Y'all all know the same snap count. If we saying on three, ready? Or we saying on Wednesday, which means on 3. On Monday, that means on 1. We all know the same snap count. So if you jumping off sides, that's just you. That's your mental fortitude and the coach not getting on you for jumping off sides. You jump off sides, coach will be like, hey, bro, that's 5 laps. Jumping off sides, we didn't lead the league. We were number 3. Last time I looked up, we was number 3 in the league in penalties. Number 3, combined with all the other garbage that we was doing. Okay. Not only that, To get a little bit more intricate with it, as much as I love Jameis Winston's performance, everybody's acting like this is new. Like they acting like Jameis Winston is a guy that we drafted 2 years ago and he just been sitting on the bench and we wouldn't put him in. That's what everybody's acting like. So wait, before I get into that, first, let me indict Kevin Stefanski a little bit more. Because I said this in the previous episode. With the small sample size that I saw of Jameis Winston last week, and that little bit of sample size he came in, I said, judging based off what you saw with him and with DTR last week, just a small sample size, why was DTR bumped up to the backup quarterback and Jameis Winston moved down to the emergency quarterback? So fast forward to this game right here, the way Jameis Winston looked, if we're gonna praise him and he's the second coming and oh my goodness, Jameis should have been in. Well, guess who that's an indictment on? If Jameis should have been in there, he should have been in there. Well, guess who that's an indictment on? That's an indictment on Stefanski. That's an indictment on Stefanski, my man. No matter how you dice it. Because just the week prior to this one, Stefanski was watching them in practice and he said to himself, you know what? DTR looked better than Jameis Winston. DTR need to be the backup. And then even once Deshaun Watson went down, and it was like, oh, wait a minute. Now it ain't about a backup. It's about who I'm finna put out here as the man right now. It's no longer a backup quarterback situation. It's who finna go out here and play right now. And he still looked at it and said, you know what? DTR. The last time I saw something like this was with the Browns. The head coach got fired. Hugh Jackson. When Hugh Jackson was putting Tyrod Taylor out there or whoever else out there and he was saying that Baker wasn't ready, and then it just so happens that a situation came down where I think Tyrod got hurt and we had to put Baker out there and Baker got out there, Baker slanging the ball, looking decent, looking good. Everybody was like, bruh, how did you look at Baker and say that he shouldn't be out there? Like, how did you come up with that? You know what? You got to go. Because this is crazy. It's no way you looked at this and didn't want to put the kid out there. This is crazy. Fired him. To me, this is the exact same thing. That's why I call him Kevin Kitchens, Freddie Stefanski, whichever one you want. You looked at DTR and Jameis Winston all week in practice, and you said, DTR going to be the backup. Jameis, you the emergency quarterback. We only going to you in emergency. How? How could you look at that and pick DTR over Jameis Winston? How? What were you doing? So that's an indictment on you, buddy, because you at practice seeing this up close and personal. And then for all of the, Jameis Winston gets the guys to rally around him and woo, woo, woo. So you've been seeing all of this. And you didn't say to yourself, nah, DTR, you the emergency guy. We got to go with the veteran who everybody's he's galvanizing the troops and everybody loves him and he can slang it and all this other stuff. How come none of that was factored in just a week ago? Make that make sense to me. Just a week ago it was DTR. So Stefanski, you need to answer for that, buddy. You don't just get off the hook in my book. I'm sorry. Everybody else glossing over it because it's a win, and it's a win, and just because they won, Cleveland, they love to celebrate mediocrity. Now Jameis Winston is the second coming, and woo, 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 woo. Now back to where I had started. Look, man, I didn't see anything different from Jameis Winston that I've been seeing his whole career. He's been the same guy his whole career. One thing we know about him, he can put the ball in the air. He gonna slang it. He gonna put the ball in there. He gonna slang it. And he good at slanging it too. It just so happens it's going to come with a few interceptions, which leads me into my next point. As much as we praising Jameis Winston, as much as I'm praising Jameis Winston, I got a little small bit of a bias for Jameis Winston because, he went to Florida State. I'm more of a Gator fan, but still, all Florida, everything this way. Cause that's where I was born. So all Florida, everything over this way. That's where I was born. Jameis Winston threw 4 interceptions. It just so happens they were all dropped by the Baltimore Ravens defenders. I counted 4 interceptions that he threw. Even the commentator on the game saying like, whoa, that's a pick there. He's got to be careful with that. What is he doing? Who was he? I don't even know who he was throwing to right there. That's what the commentator said. 4 interceptions. They were just all dropped. And the last one would have ended the game. The Browns wouldn't have won. He threw it right to the defender. The defender got the ball right here. And he caught it 3-4 times and then still dropped it. And it just so happens the very next play after that, Jameis Winston being the gunslinger that he is, we know he's going to put it in the air. End up throwing a touchdown bomb to Cedric Tillman. That's how we ended up winning the game, because of a dropped interception. That's how we ended up winning. Them prayers or whatever that Jameis was saying before the game, that helped out. We needed that. Because that's how we won the game. An NFL player, one of the better NFL players at his position, not doing his job, dropping an interception that was thrown right to him. That's not including the 3 interceptions prior to. So the only thing that I'm saying with all the people who Jameis Winston, like he the second coming, or like they saw something that they didn't see before out of him. That means you never saw Jameis Winston play before. Because if you did, I mean, that's what he does. You saw what he do. That's what he do. It's not anything new. He didn't do anything new. That's what he does. That's who Jameis Winston is. Boy gonna put the ball up. He gonna rack up them numbers. He's gonna turn the ball over while he doing it. So if you think that going forward, you can't win consistently relying on the defense to drop interceptions. Like, I don't think you can hang your hat on that for winning each week. I just don't. I don't see that. I don't see that. And yet another dynamic, Cedric Tillman. Wow, dude. Because when I was talking about that jet sweep, I was giving it to you, and I wasn't necessarily, I wasn't necessarily harping on you. It was more so like, why would Stefanski run that play with you? But one thing I've been consistent with Stefanski is, like, I think he have a hard time coaching, like, talent. Like, if you a guy who not really talented, he got you, because he could just, when you run this system, you're a system guy. When you just run this system, you'll look good. But, when you got talent, when you got superstar talent, a lot of times you can't just have them just run a system. You got to let the talent be the talent. Like, you got to let the talent be the talent. You can't put them inside a box. You can't put Patrick Mahomes inside a box. You can't tell him, don't throw them no-look passes. That's a part of what makes him him. Is throwing them no-look passes, behind-the-back passes, and all this other crazy mess. Like, that's not a system. That's him being great. You got to know how to coach that. Andy Reid knows how to coach that. He knows how to be like, all right, you know what, go ahead, man. Not coming over, hey, man, don't ever throw no behind-the-back pass. That ain't in my system. Now, all of a sudden, you putting handcuffs on a guy who's great. Let him be great. Let him go out there and be great. So, Stefanski, in my opinion, he have a hard time coaching talent. Like guys who are really, really talented, not just a system person. And dare I say, Cedric Tillman might be one of those guys. I don't understand how Cedric Tillman could look how he looked in this past week's game. He's never looked like that before. I don't understand. In fact, the ball was going to our wide receivers more than ever before. All the wide receivers getting passes thrown their way. All the wide receivers got good numbers. Before with Stefanski, that wasn't the offense. For the people of the world who want to say, well, we was running the same stuff, basically. No, he wasn't. Because our wide receivers were never getting that much love. It would be one wide receiver that would be getting love. Majority of the time is Amari Cooper. Outside of Amari Cooper, the other guys wasn't really getting looks all like that. Shoot, when Odell Beckham was here, that man was doing cardio. He was just running up and down the field. He wasn't getting no looks at all. So I'm trying to figure out how all of a sudden Cedric Tillman looked like the second coming of Justin Jefferson. Cedric Tillman out there going crazy. You mean to tell me he had this, Cedric Tillman had this in him all along? So not only, just the aspect for the quarterback, not only could you have potentially been holding the talented quarterback up and making him look like a pumpkin, you could potentially have been holding Cedric Tillman back too, making him look like a pumpkin. And the whole time, we might actually have something in Cedric Tillman. He might actually be a legit #1 wide receiver in this league. I don't want to do it all based off one game, but I'm just saying, if you had to ask me beforehand that he would ever look like that, I would say no. And somehow that man was balling, out of control. So again, man, I understand, being happy about getting a win, but we need to pump the brakes, man, on it being because only solely, strictly, just because of the quarterback change. Because there were so many other aspects that went into this win that we just got over the Baltimore Ravens. Because with all things said and everything being the way it is, we were still a dropped interception away from losing yet again. So we'll see how this thing moves going forward. We'll see how much they love Jameis Winston when he starts throwing it. Not when he starts throwing them. When the defense starts catching the interceptions that he's throwing, we'll see how much they love. How much they love Jameis Winston then. Because there are, there are a couple things that's gonna be consistent with Jameis Winston. He gonna slang it. He gonna slang it. He gonna put it in the air, and he's gonna throw interceptions. It is what it is. So I just wanted to be the voice to call out for everyone that's pointing just at the quarterback change. You do realize we changed play callers as well. And in doing so, the wide receivers look better than they've ever looked the entire time Stefanski's been here calling the plays. And so much more. Dogs on the couch signing off.